Tim, what would you say if I told you that you could feel more loved just by changing how you think?
Bang, sign me up. That would be great. But I am a little skeptical. I mean, you're talking about love? Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, love, right? I agree. I was a little skeptical as well. But our guest today, along with her co-author, have been researching this question for decades, and they have identified 5 mindsets that can help. It can help you feel more loved, Tim.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Actually, I'm looking forward to hearing from her.
Welcome to Behavioral Grooves, the podcast that seeks to understand and explain our human behavior. I'm Kurt Nelson.
And I'm Tim Houlihan. We talk with researchers and other interesting people, asking them questions to better understand why we think and behave the way that we do, to help you unlock your greatest potential and lead a more fulfilling life.
Like how to feel more loved, right?
Oh, exactly. Like how we can shift our mindset in order to feel more loved every day.
Okay. All right, Tim. Tell me more. More.
Our guest today is Sonja Lyubomirsky, renowned happiness researcher and distinguished professor at the University of California, Riverside. Sonja has been operating her happiness lab for over 3 decades and is the best-selling author of books like The How of Happiness and The Myth of Happiness. Now, this conversation that we had with her focused on the findings from her new book, How to Feel Loved, that she co-authored with renowned relationship researcher Harry Reese.
We've been wanting to talk to Sonja for years now, right? I mean,
yes.
So for us, this was super exciting. And the topic is one that we felt strongly about. And we've had a few recent episodes that have focused in on love. Episode 522 with Paul Eastwick, and another unreleased episode, at least at the time of this recording, with Marcus Buckingham. And we often think of love as an elusive feeling that we only get to experience in limited bursts. But as Sonja points out, that doesn't have to be the case. A line from their book, I think, summarizes this really, really well. Feeling loved is not out of your control.
You're right. Sonja and Harry identify 5 key mindsets in the book that help us feel loved. And these are the 5 mindsets surrounding her model. The first is sharing, listening to learn, having radical curiosity, living with an open heart, and multiplicity. And all of this is about understanding that we're all complex and multifaceted.
And while we didn't explore all of those mindsets in the episode, we did take a deep dive into a few. But you're going to have to listen to the show in order to know which ones. There you go.
Yeah. Hey, Kurt, I think that this episode is going to give our listeners some really tangible ways that they can implement right away in their lives to help them feel more loved.
I 100% agree. I mean, this episode is really powerful. And I think it's going to be really important for people. If they want to feel more loved, then this is the episode that's going to help them get there. And I know I'm already using some of those insights in my own life and that they're having some really positive results. And I think our listeners will be very happy that they took the time to listen.
Yeah. Speaking of listening, I've been listening to some really cool podcasts. So I'm just going to
that was a nice segue there, Tim.
Was that good?
Yeah.
But I've been listening to a few other podcasts recently that I think the Groovers might actually find intriguing.
Wait, you're promoting our competition? Is that what you're doing?
It's not competition. They're fellow explorers, okay? Think of them as, podcasts who are out there trying to understand our human behavior just like we are. And maybe we could just, share a couple of them that we love.
Oh, share the love, so to say, right? There you go. Yes. All right, so they're part of our Explorers Club, and we are all out there exploring different things that we love. Is that what?
Okay. Yeah, it's getting thick, but yes,
you don't love this conversation? Isn't this lovely how we're doing this? Okay, Tim. All right. Who have you been listening to?
All right. recently I checked out Maya Shankar's podcast. I've been listening to Maya. We've been listening to Maya for some time, years.
Double
right?
thumbs up there. Yeah.
So her podcast is called A Slight Change of Plans. And I just want to point out, you and I have this method. If we give somebody a book, we don't say, here, you got to read this whole book. It's like, Jesus, Maya's got hundreds of episodes. Don't try to listen to all of them. Just go to one episode. So if you and I, we give somebody a book, we'll put a little Post-it note on the chapter and say, here, read chapter 4. It's a really good chapter. And if you like that, then read the rest. So this is, I'm telling you, I'm sticking the Post-it note in the chapter. Start with, in A Slight Change of Plans, start with her episode from February 2026 on Brene Brown. It's a fantastic conversation.
Yeah. All right. So, all right, I'm going to add my own then. If we're sharing our Explorers Club.
It'll probably be better than mine. So go ahead.
Well, yeah, because it's our friend and fellow explorer, Christian Hunt.
Oh,
right?
Snap.
Who's been on this show a couple times. Mm-hmm. And he has a great podcast, and it's called Human Risk. And he takes this kind of compliance perspective, but it's really about human behavior. It's really about understanding why we take risks or why we don't and what stops. Anyway, it's a great episode. But again, to point to a specific episode, he did a recent episode with Jeffrey Ludlow. I hope I pronounced his name right. And it's about, what a sign is. A sign, like really like traffic signs and different things and other signs. But
not like
it goes, but it goes so much deeper because there is like other parts of this that they get into. And so, it's just not the signs along the roadway, but they talk about how signs are everywhere. They're everywhere. Ooh, that flashing sign up above my head right now.
Well, we do.
If
love
only
Christian.
We had a big budget that we could have, like,
a big sign.
Stuff, a big sign come up and some AI or some, graphics that would be, this is your sign to listen to Behavioral Grooves. There you go.
I wish we could have that, but in the meantime, listen to Christian's fantastic Human Risk podcast and check out Maya Shankar's A Slight Change of Plans, especially that Brene Brown episode.
Yeah. And one more thing.
Oh my God. Is there
one more thing. Yeah. We would love for you, Groovers, anybody listening to this, to help out with a survey that Tim and I are doing on what it means to be in your groove at work. Now, we'll put a link in the show notes, and it would be so fantastic to help us out if you could. It's 10 minutes of time, but man, it's going to be important. We're trying to gather this information for a book, but also for podcasts, et cetera. So
yeah, okay. Thank you for putting up with our detours. Let's get back to our main conversation here about learning more about how we can feel more loved.
Sounds great.
So sit back and relax with a great big pour of feeling love and enjoy our conversation with Sonja Lyubomirsky. Sonja Lyubomirsky, welcome to Behavioral Grooves.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for pronouncing my name so well.
Well, fortunately, I've got a little history on that. This isn't the first time that we've met, so that's a plus. But we're going to get started with our special speed round, and we'd like to know first and foremost, would you prefer to learn a new instrument or a new language?
A new language. Both.
Okay. Does a language come to mind? Does any particular language come to mind?
I'll say German.
Oh,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
I would love to learn German.
I had 2 years in high school, but it doesn't stick.
I am the worst American education. I had a half year French. That's all I ever had in my entire schooling, even with a PhD. There you go. So, Sonja, next speed round question. Are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker?
A tea drinker. And in fact, I have tea right here.
Oh, Tim will be very happy.
Cheers to you. Cheers to tea drinkers. Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We have a running kind of bet on that question, and I'm winning, but Tim's catching up with all the
by
cheap
far.
drinkers there.
By far. Yeah. Okay. Third speed round question. True or false? Love is a skill that you can get better at.
True.
We are going to come back to that. We are definitely going to come back to that. Okay, Kurt?
And the last of our speed round questions. Can you feel love from someone even if they don't actually say the words, I love you?
Yes.
True. All right. I think, again, we will come back and discuss that in more detail as we get going. So
Sonja, thanks for joining us today. We are really loving the book, How to Feel Loved. It's such
I
know, there it is. I mean, it's so refreshing because Kurt and I read a lot of books every year. It's not another, this is how you should love. This is how, if you just do these 5 things, your loving relationships will be great. I love that you approach this from the perspective of how to feel love. It's not just the receiving of it, but how to feel love. Can you talk a little bit about the impetus for this?
Sure. And I would say that feeling loved is the most important thing, because we can be loved and not feel loved. And in fact, my co-author Harry Reese and I did a survey expressly for the book, and we found that 70% say that there's at least one relationship in their life that they would like to feel more loved in, more frequently. 40% said they'd like to feel more loved by their romantic partner. And so really, like, you can be surrounded by love. It's kind of like you can be surrounded by people but still be lonely, right? You can be surrounded by love and still not feel loved. And so the context for the book really comes from my research on happiness, actually. And as you guys know, I'm a happiness scientist, and I've been researching happiness since 1989, so 36 and a half years. And mostly in 1998, when Bill Clinton was president, my lab pioneered what we call happiness interventions, right? So these are like clinical trials. They are clinical trials where we're testing different happiness practices. So instead of testing like a vaccine, we're testing gratitude or kindness or, optimism, sort of doing different things to be happier. And after all these years of doing these interventions, it hit me that almost all of these interventions that work to make us happier, the reason they work is they make us feel more connected to and loved by others, right? So, writing a gratitude letter to your son will make you feel more loved by your son, right? Doing an act of kindness to your best friend for your best friend will make you feel closer to your best friend. So almost everything is about feeling connected and loved. And so and Harry, my co-author, is a love scientist. So, he confirmed this for me. Basically, the key to happiness is feeling loved. And that's why the book is about feeling loved. Yeah.
So how did you meet up with Harry? Because again, you're a happiness researcher. He's a love relationship guy. How did that connection happen?
Well, he's, we're in the same field in social psychology. So, we met at conferences a long time ago. I think, I think it was 20 years ago, 18 years ago, I think, as I met him for the first time at a conference. We had a long talk, but we'd been aware of each other's research. And then I think it was only like 8 years ago, really 8 years ago, that we started talking. And kind of said to each other, why don't love scientists and
talk with happiness
talk to each
researchers?
And we already know like relationships are sort of key to happiness, and then we made this sort of leap that it's not just relationships, it's really feeling loved in your relationship. We define love very broadly, right? It's not just love for your romantic partner, it's your colleague, let's bring the word love to the workplace, certainly friends, neighbors, family members, children, parents, etc.
Yeah. So can we just get to, you mentioned something important here that's worth distinguishing. Being loved and feeling loved are two different things. Why is that?
Well, because you can, again, it's kind of like you can be beautiful, but not feel beautiful, right? You can be rich, but not feel rich. You can be smart, but not feel smart. You can be loved and not feel loved. For whatever reason, that love is not sort of getting through, and one actually metaphor we use is like, I have a cup of love, and you're showing love to me and it's sort of filling up the cup, but maybe there's a leak in the bottom and it's leaking out. So somehow it's not quite, I don't quite feel all of it. Or maybe the lid on the top the opening is too small and it's not quite getting in. So there's lots of reasons why that might be true. including like you're kind of not aware of it. You're not sort of reading the signals right. But the point is that it's the feeling love that really matters.
Yeah, I love that. When you think about that, I mean, there's a rationality of knowing that you're loved too, right? I mean, there's a part of this that you can rationally know it, but that doesn't always translate into feeling loved, if I got that right from your book. Why? What is I mean, I can see my spouse, I know my spouse cares for me and loves me, but I might not be feeling that. Is similar to what you were just talking about, or is there a different component?
Yeah,
there?
I mean, the cup of love metaphor, I think, is really relevant to sort of anxious attachment style or dismissive avoidant attachment. So, I mean, if you're anxiously attached, maybe you're somehow not, like somehow insecure about that. You kind of know it, but you don't quite feel it. I think there could be a lot of reasons for it, maybe because of your background, maybe because you have low self-esteem. We talk about the importance of self-love and self-compassion. When you really love yourself, you're more likely to trust, when other people sort of showing you love. You're more likely to notice it. It's going to kind of get in. You're going to see it as more genuine and authentic. You're not going to be suspicious of it. It's kind of a lonely person who's suspicious of other people's social motives. But another thing that's really at the heart of our book is this idea that to feel truly loved, you need to feel or to be known, to be really known to the other person. And so if the other person doesn't know you, so let's say you're someone who really holds things close to the vest, you really are very private. We all know people like that.
Yeah.
And in fact, we all have walls around us, like all of us, we all walk around with these walls around us. It's natural, it's human. We use those walls to protect ourselves, but we also prevent from other people from really getting in, right? And so if the other person doesn't really know you, we argue you're always going to wonder, would they love me? Would they still love me if they knew me, right? Like, how can you really trust someone's love if the other person doesn't really know what you are inside? Like, what does that even mean? Like, who are they loving? Because they don't really know you, right? They don't know you sort of quote true self. And so at the heart of the book is sort of what do we do to become more known to the other person? And also, how do we really know others? Because feeling loved actually starts with you trying to make other people feel loved, which is actually a beautiful thing. How do you get to know the other person in a way that makes them feel more loved?
It's this fantastic reciprocity thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And reciprocity is one of the most powerful norms of social behavior, right? So the idea is, if I want to feel more loved, say and I actually had this experience with a family member where I wasn't feeling as loved by her as I'd like to be. And as I was thinking, I guess we can kind of back up a little bit. What do most people do when they don't feel loved? They think I need to make myself more lovable, right? Maybe I need to sort of be more wonderful or show that I'm a good person, or I'm smart and interesting and kind and funny. We're all trying to do that, right? We're trying to impress each other. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I want to impress you. And that might impress you. You might think, yeah, she's smart and interesting, but I'm not gonna feel loved because I might be admired, right? So with this family member, I was sort of trying to think, what can I do to change myself? Or maybe I need to change her somehow, try to get her to love me more. But really, that's the wrong approach. And we say in the book that it's not about, if you want to feel more loved, it's not about changing yourself. It's not about changing the other person. It's actually about changing the conversation that you're having, and when you think about a relationship, it's just a series of conversations. And so the first step, if I want to feel more loved, like with this family member, is to make her feel loved first. And that's and the idea is with reciprocity, she's going to, we hope, reciprocate and do the same thing for me. So that's what really the book is about. How do you make the other person feel loved first?
We've had Nick Epley on the show a couple different times. He's actually at our 500th episode launch, and so he was with us in person, and he talks a lot about that conversation and the conversation and obviously that's with strangers a lot of his work has been on, but he does dig into just the fact that we don't have those deep conversations, that we always feel like the other person isn't necessarily wanting to go as deep as we would potentially like to do. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Absolutely. In some of this?
And by the way, Nick Epley, who's a friend, I was just emailing him with him today. He literally, his work is cited all over our book. And one of my favorite set of studies of his is that people think if we, for example, asking deep questions of someone else, it's going to be awkward. People are going to think that we're nosy. And actually, no, people crave to be asked. Like they want to have, if you have a deep conversation, people will like you more. They'll feel closer to you. And so, yeah, so a lot of when we really get to know each other, how do we get to know each other? By having deep conversations, not by having small talk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe small talk, you'll get to know a little bit something about me. I like basketball, but it's not going to make me feel loved. And so really having deep conversations. So the first step in making another person feel loved is really just to show curiosity in them, to ask them those questions. It has to be genuine, to really help them take those walls down a little bit. So I get to know you. So you guys, I want to get to know you a little more. I'll ask you some deep questions. And you start small, right? You want to read the room. So I might say, hey, what's been on your mind lately? Or I'm not going to go right away into your relationship with your parents or something. But I read the room. Maybe you want it. Maybe I sense you want to be asked, right? And then the idea is that I ask you those questions. I show curiosity, just show enthusiasm. The 3 magic words, right, is tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And so start opening up, and then I listen. And then as you're opening up, I'm truly listening. I'm not just mentally rehearsing my answer. We call it listening to learn instead of listening to respond. And so, yeah, and then you're sharing, I'm listening, and then hopefully you'll reciprocate, and then show curiosity in me, and then help me share a little bit more. Because again, you want to get to know me better too. That's part of the process of feeling more loved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kurt and I have talked about this in the past about how some people are just sort of naturally better than that. But these are skills that you can learn.
Absolutely.
It's not just DNA, right?
No, but it's hard. It's hard. I guess I would say that the instructions are pretty simple. Like, show curiosity, ask questions, listen. Don't think about how to respond when you're listening. Just someone gave me this great idea, which is when you're listening to someone, imagine you're watching a film. Like when watching a movie, we're not rehearsing an answer or response. I mean, unless we're like writing a paper on it or we're a filmmaker. We're just like taking it in. Like it's just playing in front of us. Maybe it's a conversation and we're just listening, right? Or we're watching. And so imagine when someone's talking, it's like you're watching a movie and you're just taking it in. Anyway, so we can all learn that, but it's not easy. And you do need emotional intelligence. You do need to kind of read cues. So when you're sharing a little bit about yourself, or you're gauging the other person's interest. Do they want to hear more? When you're asking them questions like, how deep should you go? Because pacing is really important, right? You want to kind of maybe ask a little something, and then middle, and then, deeper and deeper.
You use an analogy in the book about a seesaw. Is that what you're talking about here?
Yeah.
Is that kind of this?
Different ways of saying it, right? The seesaw is basically like this. It's an underwater seesaw. You and I are sitting, so Kurt, you and I are sitting on the seesaw. And most of ourselves are submerged under the water because I don't really see most of you. Maybe I only see the positive side because that's the side that you're showing me. Yeah. Right. And you only see the positive side of me. And so, but by showing curiosity, asking questions, listening, the idea is that I'm sort of pressing down on the seesaw and helping lift you up a little bit more out of the water and helping you share a little bit more. And then you're sharing more. I'm listening. That makes me even feel even more safe to share a little bit more. Again, it's a slow process.
Yeah.
And then the idea is that you'll reciprocate, and then you'll lift me up under the water. So that's why we kind of like this like reciprocal process.
Well, there's a vulnerability about that though too, because as you said, oftentimes that part that's above the water is the really good stuff about us that we like to that we're trying to maintain an image for other people. So is that vulnerability that comes with like sharing, is that part of the issue why we don't do it so much?
Yeah, absolutely. Vulnerability is a really important piece of it. Because we tend to share like sort of our highlight reel, right? The parts of us that are the good parts, and whether it's in person or on social media, right? And that's totally normal, human, very human to do that. Because again, I want to impress you. I want you to think that I'm interesting and virtuous and smart. And I might succeed at impressing you, right? But I'm not going to forge a connection with you if I'm just sharing the positive part. So vulnerability, by the way, vulnerability doesn't have to be like revealing some deep trauma or secret. Certainly not a right away. And it's just more showing a little more of yourself. Like, I think, what's your real opinion about that show that everyone loves, but maybe you don't love as much, right? That's not necessarily, I mean, it's a little vulnerable because you're kind of showing that you're different, but so it doesn't have to be going that deep, but absolutely, like, and again, the idea is, if I don't show those sides of me to you, those vulnerable pieces, I'll always wonder, like, would you still love me if you knew those parts of me? So it's really important that you know at least some of those parts of me.
Oh, yeah. Well, so well said, Sonja. One of the parts, and I'm going back earlier in the book, that I really loved is the common beliefs about feeling loved, the if only beliefs, the if only inhibitors, right? If only I were more attractive, I'd feel more love. If only I could make sure that only my positive qualities were known, I'd feel more love. And it reminded me of the poet David Whyte, who writes about if only this, and Roy Baumeister's The Power of Regret, this anticipated regret in our life. Like what, like we're going to make decisions about how we behave based on if only I do this, or if I don't. And why, I guess my question is, why are these such huge inhibitors? Why are these if only beliefs such massive moderators?
Right. By the way, thank you for that. I just wrote down David Whyte. Thank you for that tip. Yeah, so interesting. Well, if I were more accomplished, successful, higher status, more power, more money, more beauty, more fame, I'd be happier. I'd be more loved. Like,
right.
Those are those extrinsic goals. And it is interesting. Like, this is fascinating, right? Like, why are they so compelling? Because we know that is not going to get us neither happiness. Well, I mean, at least striving for them is not going to get us happiness. I mean, it could be. I often go back to evolutionary theory because I think that kind of explains almost everything. Maybe sort of it's evolutionarily adaptive, sort of to be successful, basically to have sort of more power, status, fame, beauty than others, because that's what's going to get you mates. That's what's going to get you, more whatever, food, shelter, safety. And so maybe we sort of, like kind of overgeneralize. But research shows sort of repeatedly that it's not those things that are going to sort of make us happier. But we think like, if the other people, if only they knew these positive qualities, so that I have, that I need to pursue those things. Again, money, power, beauty, fame, status, accomplishment. And then I need to broadcast those things and hide my imperfections and my contradictions and my weaknesses and shortcomings, which we all have. But again, if you hide those things, then the other person won't really, again, when they're loving me, what are they loving? They're loving this little part of me that I'm showing to the world and nothing else. Like, I won't really feel that's authentic, right? I mean, it's not their fault, right? Because that's all they see.
Yeah. The Oscar Wilde quote then,
Which one? Yeah, which one?
You might as well be yourself, because
there's no one, because there's no one, something like that, or there's no one else.
Everyone else is taken, or
everyone else is taken. I love, exactly. I think we have that quote in the book.
Yes.
Lots of examples where people, like you just don't feel, when someone doesn't really know you, you just won't really feel that love coming towards you is just not going to feel genuine to you.
It feels like a very difficult way to go through the world, though, as well. I mean, there's that part where, if I'm hearing you correctly, that you're always having to maintain a front in front of people because at subconscious level, you're afraid of not having that love if you show some of these weaknesses or other parts.
And maybe you got burned, right? Maybe, and unfortunately, it sounds like maybe in childhood, like you felt like love was conditional. But the whole, that word, like unconditional love, right? I love you even if you show me this shortcoming or weakness of yours. And so, what was I going to say? I think we all do it. Obviously, we do it differently with different people. I would hope that for everyone, there's at least one or two or three people in their lives that they are able to kind of be more, kind of show more of their fuller selves to, but not to everyone. But I guess I would recommend to show more of your full self to like other people, to more people. It could be to obviously appropriately. It could be to colleagues. It could be to to sort of neighbors. There's this, I keep coming back to this sort of famous story of after the Bay of Pigs, John F. Kennedy went on TV and admitted he made a mistake. And that was very vulnerable. And his approval ratings shot way up after that. Now, he's Kennedy, right? Maybe that one doesn't work for everyone, but it is sort of interesting, right? That being vulnerable kind of at the right place at the right time, people like you more, not less.
Yeah, it's the pratfall effect to a certain degree and like a loving scale,
like
though.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No one's ever connected that, but I like that pratfall. Yeah.
Hey Groovers, we want to take a moment away from our conversation to thank you for listening to Behavioral Grooves. If you enjoy the conversations we're having and want to help us keep the groove going, here are a few simple ways that you can support the show.
First off, subscribing to our Substack is a great way to stay connected with us between episodes. The weekly newsletter provides you with cool insights that are beyond the episodes, and they get delivered straight to your inbox.
And if you haven't already, leaving a review or a rating of the podcast on a platform like Apple or Spotify or YouTube helps other curious minds discover us. And there's two great things about that. One, it gives us a boost, and two, it costs nothing.
And it only takes a second, but it makes a huge difference for us. Plus, we love hearing from you, so don't be shy. Leave us a review or give us a quick thumbs up.
We're coming up on 500 episodes, and we're doing this because we love the conversations we have with our guests.
Yeah, we also want to do it because we love bringing you insightful, behavior-changing content every week, and we hope that some of those insights will help you find your groove.
Well, Sonja, I want to go. I love your kind of how to feel loved. The 5 mindsets that get you more out of what matters most. What is it? You guys are talking about 5, obviously, mindsets and different things. What are, again, we don't have to go through all of them, but kind of for our listeners, kind of overview why you're talking about mindsets and what that does for helping us feel loved.
Sure. Well, we were thinking this isn't a self-help step-by-step manual, right? Where we tell people do these 5 things and then you'll feel more loved, or you'll make other people feel more loved. We really thought of it as more of embracing a mindset, kind of an approach or perspective. And so it really makes sense to me because a mindset is like something you put on, like a coat you put on. So for example, listening, right? Next time you have a conversation, think of yourself as a listener and not a speaker, right? And then you kind of put on this coat, which is sort of the listening to learn mindset, where your goal is really to listen and learn as though you're going to be tested on it the next day. Wow. And so that's one of the mindsets. And so I really like the idea of mindsets of just, as I said, kind of approaches that you take on, because they actually involve lots of steps, but sometimes few, sometimes a lot, kind of depends, And so, if you want to make someone else feel more loved, I kind of like to think of it as you start with curiosity. We call it the radical curiosity mindset, and something you really can't fake. People can tell when you're really curious, and it's so rare, right? It's so rare. It's so compelling and powerful when someone is really curious about you. Like they just can't wait to hear your answer, right? Or to hear your story. When we're falling in love, that happens, right? But it doesn't happen very often. When was the last time someone was so curious about you, right? And we know charismatic people tend to be very curious about others, which is partly what draws everyone to them. So you start with curiosity. Again, you embrace this sort of mindset, I'm going to be curious. I'm going to approach other people with wonder. Very important, especially with long-term relationships or friends, where we often stop being curious about people that we've known for years. Yeah. We think we sort of know everything about them. We sort of stop asking them questions, but there's always something new going on in their minds, new feelings, new doubts, right? New dreams and fears. And so curiosity, start with curiosity, listening to learn mindset. Then we have the sharing mindset, which is really at the heart of knowing and being known, right? Is I'm sharing vulnerably, you're sharing at the right pace, right? Don't dump everything at once, read the room. So that's 3 already.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, and I love this idea of it's a something you wear. I always think of mindsets as they're mind settings, right? So you turn the dial on your mind and you set your mind to a different setting. It's I'm in that listening mode to really understand now. And that, I think, is a really wonderful way of thinking about this. And it's a very practical way. Like you said, it's not step 1, step 2, step 3, here you go. But it's like, all right, in this situation, I need to be more in this sharing component, or I need to be more in this, and I can set my mind to say, all right, this is the mindset that I need to have.
Yeah. By the way, I think I've gotten more thoughts or ideas from you guys than any other podcast I've been on because of because usually, I'm asked questions and and this is amazing. I'm taking notes. So the mind setting, are you thinking of it more like a radio or TV where we're turning channels? It's like you're going to the right channel, or are you thinking of it as like turning the dial up versus down on certain things?
Yeah.
Both, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. When I think about it, it's that, there's a certain part that it goes to 11, right? Okay, so we can turn it up to 11, or it's like finding the right station on. We're all old enough here to remember the days when you actually had to.
I was going to say that, like, nowadays people don't really it's like
my child wouldn't understand that, but they're like
there literally was a dial, and although I still have actually a radio in my car that really does still has a dial. And mostly just interference, but
static in between.
Exactly,
but
anyway, so I love that idea, and there's just so much. And then once you're in that on that right station or wearing that coat of that mindset, then a lot of things can come to pass. I actually also made me think of, someone was just telling me how when you're speaking a different language, or you're like kind of code switching, you're like literally are putting on. It's like someone said it's kind of like you're sort of downloading that cultural script, suddenly, like I'm Russian, like when I speak Russian, I'm a different person than when I speak English. And so it's a little bit like that. It's like the mindset of like the dialing in of like my Russianness script. Like I'm going to be more open. Maybe I'm going to be more emotional. Maybe I'm going to be more physical than when I'm sort of in the American script, Anyway, so it's also a little bit like that.
Well, and for you, those things are unconscious, right? That switch is not happening consciously. Right. Is that correct?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I think people almost don't realize that there's, but now we're saying, do this consciously for the mindsets. If you want to feel, if you want to make another person feel loved, like consciously put on the curiosity and listening mindset.
I want to go back to a comment that you made earlier about not self-preservation. What was it? Self-respect, like, and a lack of self-respect, and how that can have a negative impact on you. Are there other sort of predominant kinds of psychological tendencies or biases that can jam us up, basically, and get in our way when it comes to feeling loved?
Yeah, sure. Well, some of them we've already kind of talked about. There's sort of these there's a paradoxes. There's vulnerability paradox, which is, we've already talked about, which is that we think like if we be more vulnerable, people won't like us. Actually, it's often the opposite. Again, at the right time, at the right place. There's a paradox of transparency, where we sort of assume people can kind of see, like know what we're about, and they don't actually. They really don't. So we need to share. So the sharing mindset is actually one of my favorites, because there's lots of really good research about, how to share, about kind of the impact of sharing on others. Actually, a study just came out recently, had people from opposite kind of political spectrums sharing something vulnerable about themselves. And it was beautiful, right? So they might share, like, I'm really struggling with my son. And then that MAGA person is sharing, they're struggling with their son. And suddenly they feel more aligned, and they feel more sort of curious and compassionate towards each other, from sharing. So it's kind of beautiful finding.
I got to find that paper. That sounds fantastic.
I loved your idea of the transparency part, though, because and I'm an N of one, so I might be way off on this, but there are many times like I just expect my close loved ones to know what I'm thinking and feeling at all times without me telling them. And so therefore they should know that I'm sad, and they should come and give me a birthday cake, or not birthday cake, like ice cream or something to cheer me up. And then they don't. And then I get even worse. I might go, I'm sad. Why didn't you realize that? I made a sad face and you didn't recognize it,
Yeah, you know what? I read actually when it comes to romantic, you were talking about sort of different people in your life, but when it comes to romantic partners, this actually comes from like romanticism, this ideal of like romantic love is like, if you truly love me, like you'll know what I'm thinking and feeling of all times. And if you don't,
Yeah.
then we get, very upset,
Yeah.
and, you sort of go, there's this, I heard the story, or you sort of, the story is like a couple is coming back from a party and the wife is like really upset the whole time, and the husband is like, what are you upset about? And she's just like, I can't believe you don't know, like something happened at the party. And then she comes, she goes into the bathroom, she slams the door, and again, this is a romantic ideal that like you should know what I'm feeling and thinking anyway. But the paradox of transparency is kind of more general to that.
Let's switch gears over to
truthful.
Yes, I found all too familiar. Let's switch gears back to an earlier comment you made about bringing love to work colleagues. Like what we just talked to Marcus Buckingham, had this wonderful collegiate discussion about designing love into the workplace and into your work relationship.
Wow. Well, I'd love to hear more about that. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to say other than I just think love is a beautiful thing, and that we need to, and again, define broadly. My colleague Barb Fredrickson at UNC Chapel Hill, she wrote a book called Love 2.0 a while ago, but it's still really great and relevant. Yeah. And she talks about drops of love. Imagine like you're just talking to the barista, kind of like the Nick Epley research. Yeah. And you feel like somehow like you share something important. You both feel kind of human at the same time. You're in sync, and it's like a little drop of love. I mean, I love that idea. Like more drops of love in our life, And then with colleagues, like they're colleagues, right? They're colleagues that you love and that they love you. And what's wrong with, why don't we use that word? And I understand, maybe it could be dangerous to say that too much, but we associate the word love so much with the romantic context. And like to say, I love you in a romantic context, it seems like such a big deal, right? Like, oh, they said, I love you to me. And so maybe that's the hurdle, but like I use that word all the time. In fact, my kids often get confused because I'll be like on the phone and I'll be like, I love you so much. And they're like, Mom, who are you talking to? And I'll be like, oh, I'm talking to my friend so-and-so. And my friends and I say, I love you to each other all the time. It's beautiful. And I hope more people do that. And in the workplace as well. Like anyone that you feel love for, say it out loud. Again, Nick Epley does research showing that we hesitate to reach out. We hesitate, whether it's to express gratitude, to give a compliment. I love the compliments research. It's like, if you're thinking, oh, I feel love for you right now, or I'm so grateful you're in my life. I value our relationship. Thank you for your help. Like, just say it. Most of the time we don't say it, or write a text. My favorite, writing text to people and saying, I love you, or I'm grateful.
We had, when Nick came and was speaking at our engagement, we had 80 people there, and he did an experiment. And I love he had people talk for 15 minutes, 3 questions. I'm going to forget what these are, Tim, so sorry. But they were, when was the last time you cried? Yeah. When was, they were not your, like, how's the weather questions.
And all were complete strangers.
Yeah.
And these are all,
they weren't talking to loved ones.
And and again, well, all this research, right? It's that the expectation going in is this is going to be horrible. I'm going to feel very uncomfortable. I'm not going to like this, and they're not going to want to hear this. And at the end, when then they look at it, it's like, no, that actually brought us much closer together, and that we feel closer to that individual. I mean, many of these people were sharing their contact information, and we got to stay in touch. And
they're being vulnerable. They're sharing, right? So curiosity, sharing, listening, right? Is all taking place. We have. I teach a class every Friday. Actually, I just did this morning called Elevate. And it's just a Zoom class. Anyone can take it. And we share different happiness tools. And lately, we've been having people go into breakout rooms. It's on Zoom. And it's amazing. People come out of these breakout rooms and they're like, that was magical. Like,
wow.
I know. Today we talked about, in fact, one session a couple of weeks ago, it was about actually asking deep questions. So we said, okay, say something that's happening in your life and then have the other person ask questions. And they're like, wow, that was so amazing, because we don't ask enough questions of each other. today we talked about taking a more self-distance perspective. So like you have a problem, how would like a friend think about the problem? Because when you're immersed in it, it's like, often very emotional. And so anyway, so the point is like, being vulnerable with each other is incredibly powerful.
Can we talk a little bit about happiness and your work on happiness? Because you have, Sonja, and
we have been talking about happiness because it's all about
yes.
Okay, fair enough. But I'm so glad that you mentioned early on that you run a happiness lab.
Right, and I have for 36 and a half years. Actually, I guess that's not true because part of that was grad school. So I guess since 94, so 32 years, I've had a happiness lab. And we mostly do happiness interventions. But we also study sort of what are the factors that contribute to happiness. And right now, actually, my lab is really focused on how to get people to feel more loved and connected. Not surprisingly, how to get people to have conversations that are deeper. So, like we have a study that we're just finishing running where we have people have a conversation with a stranger, and then we give people instructions actually for 3 mindsets, either to share vulnerably, or to listen, to learn, or to show curiosity in the other person. So we'll see. We don't have the results yet. And then we also have sort of no instruction, sort of how does that conversation going to go differently when people are prompted to embrace the mindsets. But anyway, so we're studying what makes people happy. And right now we're really focused on connection.
Can't wait to see what that stuff gets published. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. I hate the idea of asking a question like, okay, so in the last 36 years, what's the number one thing to do this? I'm not going to ask that because I think
but I'll answer it because my number one happiness tip. Actually, I have a TED Talk.
You have one?
I have one actually.
Okay.
I have a TED Talk. It's just 5 minutes, and it's like my number one happiness tip. And actually, I think maybe they edited out this particular way of saying it, but basically, if you were going to do one thing today to be happier, and this is actually following really Nick Epley, have a 15-minute conversation with someone, right? A 15-minute conversation at least. But ideally, I mean, Nick talks about the importance of having really any conversations, right? Even the small talk with the barista or the person next to you on the train is going to make you happier. And absolutely, that's true. Lots of ways that's gonna, I don't know, just feel like you're more connected and we're all human, and also could lead to deeper conversations. But I'm interested in sort of that 15-minute conversation being a little deeper, showing curiosity, listening, sharing, showing warmth and acceptance. I'm actually working with a company right now called TWOS, TWOS, where they literally, that's the reason that I'm like working with them is they're doing exactly that. I'm like, oh, cool. Like they're getting strangers together. They're kind of matching strangers for 15-minute conversations. And so it doesn't have to be a stranger, of course, to get happier. But that's my number one tip is sort of have a conversation. On average, it's going to make you happier.
Sonja, does that, just to dig into that a little bit, if I have that 15-minute conversation with Tim today and then Tim tomorrow, and then Tim the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Should I be?
Like that's what you already are doing.
Well, sometimes I just get tired of having these deep conversations.
Yeah,
with Tim. Should I be switching it up? Is there any research that shows or is it okay? I mean, I will have deep conversation with my spouse on a regular basis. Is that going to be?
But we do adapt. So actually, my second book. So my first book is called The How of Happiness, which is about happiness strategies, right? The second book is called The Myths of Happiness. And that's really about to answer your question. It's a whole book that answers your question. It's about what's called hedonic adaptation.
Yeah.
We do adapt. Like we get a little bit fewer rewards over time, if it's the same person, but you can change it up. Of course, you can have a different conversation with Tim that you normally do. I mean, it doesn't have to be always like very deep, it could be sort of different. But you also can talk to other people. But again, when I say about curiosity, we stop asking questions of the people we know because we were like, oh, we kind of know them. But there's always, again, think about it, like every day, Tim or your wife is having new thoughts, new experiences, new feelings, new self-doubts, new fears, new hopes, right? Really new every single day. And so there's always something new to discover about that person. And so I love that idea. You can always ask, be curious, continue to be curious about each other.
Yeah. I feel like I'm always so good at just recycling my same old problems in my own head.
I think that's why I'm bored of you, Tim. That's what I'm just going to say.
Well, okay, here's one. Actually, can I mention sex? Because I think this is, I read I read a very interesting article about consent and how, of course, we need to ask for consent when we're having sex with people, especially new people in our lives. But what about you've been married for 30 years? And the article was saying you should continue asking for consent, even if you've been having sex for 30 years. And I'm like, wow, well, that's interesting. But their point is that person is always changing. Like maybe that thing that you've been doing for 30 years, like they're not into anymore. Maybe they're into something new. And it's just such an obvious point in some ways, but like keep asking, it's basically keep asking questions, right? Like being curious. In all domains of life. I actually have a friend who's a sex therapist, and she was saying, curiosity during sex is actually one of the most important things that you can, practice, right? So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right. I was going to ask a question on gratitude, but coming after sex, it does that.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, please do. Yeah.
I'll just let that one go. There you go.
I feel like we have to address the elephant in the room, and that's Gary Chapman's 5 love languages stuff. Pulp fiction or science, where do you land on that?
Sure. Okay, actually, I'd love to talk about the love languages, and we have a little section in How to Feel Loved devoted to that. So I love the love languages. I talk about them a lot. Like there's a fun heuristic, kind of like a game. I think about the love languages a little bit like I think about astrology, right? It's kind of like a fun thing to talk about. Maybe that's unfair, but it's a great heuristic,
Yeah.
But the idea has been debunked for various reasons. Again, it's nice. It's a descriptive idea, but the reason it's been debunked, a couple of reasons. One is, of course, there's more than 5 love languages. There's probably 100, right? People can show love in so many different ways. The other finding is that it's actually really 2 love languages that all of us prefer, kind of on average. So it's not like, there's all these individual differences. And the 2, I don't know, can you guess what they are? Maybe you know what they are.
Oh my gosh!
It's physical touch and
no.
Physical touch is not.
I love that's my top love language.
Yeah, that would be mine too. There you go.
But the one that most humans will report, the top ones are quality time and words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation.
Everyone wants to be told I love you or you're great, and quality time. I mean, sort of obvious. Like who doesn't want quality time? Right. So those are the 2 that are top for pretty much everyone. So that's, and then the other thing is that, there's no evidence that you need to sort of match in your love languages and that's going to somehow affect like how good your relationship is or how long it's going to last. So it's really not about matching. It's about those 2, hopefully your partner shows those 2, but it's also the more ways, this is again, kind of obvious when you say it, the more ways your partner shows you love, the better.
Yeah.
It's not about matching only in that one.
I just want this one. And that's,
right. If they show love in 12 different ways. Amazing, right? Having said that, physical touch is my top one. And if I'm with someone who really is not good at that, like that is going to be a little problematic. So like having said that, like I think there's something to that. Yeah.
Okay. Sonja, we get to come to the part of our discussion where we get to talk about music, and you have some lovely musical references. Amy Winehouse, you use the Animals, I think, a little reference there. But I'm curious, were you listening to music when you were writing the book?
I wasn't, because I cannot write and listen to music at the same time. Actually, I was talking to people about this because, in fact, actually my kids, some of them just like really like to. And I know people are different. For me, even if it's classical music, even if it's something that's just like, there's no words, it's just too distracting. Like my brain is taking that music in. I guess I could interpret it in a positive way. I'm really like appreciating, trying to sort of savor and hear the music. And it's weird to me how, But on the other hand, I can go to a coffee shop and for whatever reason, I shut out. I don't care. Like
really?
Yeah.
All the background noise.
All the conversation.
Yeah. And maybe because music is something, maybe it's more compelling or something. Well, if it's one big conversation right next to me that I can't quite shut out, that's a problem. But if it's like lots of conversations, then it's sort of white noise to me.
Okay.
So I'm not actually listening to the conversations. It actually turns out the worst is phone conversations. Actually, this is actually really interesting. Why is it that a phone conversation near you is so distracting? You know why?
Are you trying to figure out what the other side is saying?
Exactly. It's like you can't help but, and that little bit of effort is, taking away from your cognitive mental energy. Anyway, yeah. So I don't listen to music when I work. I just can't.
Yeah. You just won super brownie points with me.
Right. Thank you. I mean, I can do it obviously if I'm like, washing the dishes or something. I mean, I can multitask.
Yeah.
Not writing. Yeah.
Tim is, we have different view. Tim is exactly like you. I can listen as long as there's not words in it. And actually even sometimes when there are. So there you go.
That's crazy. Sonja Lyubomirsky, thank you so much for being a guest on Behavioral Grooves today.
Thank you. That was a lovely conversation. Really, I loved your questions. And as I said, I think I had like 4 or 5 insights that I have to write down now from you. So thank you for that.
Sorry to make you work. Welcome to our grooving session where Tim and I share ideas on what we learned from our discussion with Sonja, have a free-flowing conversation, and groove on whatever else comes into our feeling loved brains.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they're getting a little massage, our brains.
As our brains are feeling loved.
A little love. They're feeling loved. Do you like that accent? That's really weird. I don't know. Anyway,
I didn't even realize it was an accent. Sorry.
Feeling loved. Yeah, that was there. Yeah. So, what you think, man? I mean, you've known Sonja for a long time. So for you, this is like an old reunion. For me, it was like, whoa, Sonja.
Fanboy.
I'm talking to, I mean, her work on happiness. Oh my God.
Fantastic stuff.
So fantastic over the years. Yeah.
Yeah. Years. Yeah. 30 years she's had the lab. And so it was really fun for me to get to talk to her just about the new book. And so I really like that. And I think the concept, this thesis, it's that the center part of the story isn't just about being loved, but feeling loved. I so dig that.
Yeah. I mean, and it's this idea, you can be surrounded by love. You can have a whole bunch of people who really love you.
Yeah.
But you can still not feel loved. And that seems counterintuitive, that there's a miss there. But what Sonja brings out is it's the feeling of being loved, that you feel love, that is really at the core. And there's a difference between being loved and feeling loved. And we need to focus in on the feeling part, because the act of just being loved doesn't necessarily necessitate into a good, better, happy life, right? So,
and I think people have felt that. I think that's not an uncommon idea, and of course it connects to the cup of love metaphor, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're pouring love, going into the cup, filling up, and then it breaks.
Or it has leaks, right? It leaks or overflows. Love overflowing.
But again, I think her thesis is really important to keep in mind, that it is something, and we'll talk a little bit about the mindsets, but it is about feeling. It's about adjusting your worldview to say, I feel loved. I'm going to accept this.
Yeah, and I do like that cup with a leaky metaphor, right? Because you can think about the leaks in the cup as being, like attachment issues, self-esteem, lack of, this idea of self-knowledge, the idea. She talked in there, I think, about these highlight reels selves that we have, this idea of, I thought that was something along that. And so, so if the love is there, Tim, what stops it from landing? So if we are actually out there and people love us, but it's not landing with us, why?
Yeah, attachment's the big number one issue, right? Then when we have weak attachment or bad, poorly formed attachments, we get anxious. And then it's like, I can't accept this.
Yeah, the anxious attachment style, avoidant attachment style. So those attachment styles from Bowlby and et cetera. So
yeah, that's like that's the biggie. That's like the big push away. Like I'm not going to receive this. I'm not going to feel the love that people are already giving me.
And I think there's an aspect of people. Oftentimes we have low self-esteem. We don't have that sense of self-compassion. There's a whole bunch of past hurts and mistrust, and so it's what is the song? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Who did that?
What's
Whitney
Love Got
Houston?
to Do with It by Tina Turner.
Tina Turner. There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
But that's true. I mean, a heart can be broken, and so people don't accept that love in because they're fearful. They've had that happen to them before. And so we can absolutely be loved and not feel it because of those components. So.
And if you've got any kind of history, you're going to have, if you have any kind of history of being loved and, breakups and things like that, it hurts. It just hurts.
Even within love, I mean, there are ups and downs within any kind of relationship, whether that be a spouse, a romantic partner, a friend, a child, any of those.
So what struck you about the mindsets? What was there an aspect, or was there one of the mindsets that really connected with you? Because you said you've been applying some of this stuff in your own life.
So I will take our second most quoted person besides Annie Duke, Kwame Christian, right? And talking about compassionate curiosity and mirrored that with Sonja's radical curiosity. So, right? It's this idea of so often we go through life just having things happen to us, having the world go by. We acknowledge it for a second and then move on without this idea of really having a curiosity about why, of understanding what's happening. We just kind of let things go. And particularly when it comes to relationships.
And it's good to remember that the human condition has one mouth and two ears, right? It certainly says to me that the listening is more important than the speaking, that we oftentimes fail to just actually do that compassionate curiosity, that radical curiosity, and get too much into, I want to tell you about how I feel.
Right. And it's listening to learn, right? Not to respond as a cubby kind of component, but it's this idea of having that curiosity of like, help me understand you. Help me and there's that component where when you do that, right, you're giving, you're asking them to share. And then when they share, or you're sharing a little bit and being vulnerable, right? This vulnerability mindset and the sharing mindset. Yeah. And it becomes this give and take. There is a reciprocity that goes with this.
Yeah, I'd also go back to Nick Epley, where Nick Epley's work on having conversations with strangers, or really just about anybody, it starts with, I don't know if I want to ask that question because, no one wants to hear that question from me.
Right.
It's like, no, but actually we do want to hear that question from you. We do. We want to know what you think about something.
It's the assumptions that we make about what other people, and this is like Nick's work and Sonja's work, I think is absolutely fantastic about this. Yeah. We are horrible at predicting what A is going to make us happy, but what other people are going to find interesting or intrusive or not intrusive or wonderful. We are not good mind readers. Who was it that told us like the best way to understand what somebody else is thinking is to ask them, what are you thinking? We can't like try to intone those through, look at the way their body's acting. Let's decipher, what they're doing, how their arms are, how they're looking. No, just ask them. And
right. It's that simple. It is that simple. Okay, so if we're having this conversation, if we're going to have this 15-minute conversation, we're going to ask questions. We're going to use our compassionate curiosity and our radical curiosity. We're going to ask that maybe one of the most important questions of tell me more. Tell me more. I want to hear more about that. That's an act of feeling loved, right? It allows you to feel loved if you just listen to the words. Tell me more.
Again, going back to Marcus Buckingham and his work about that, again, is focused in on love at work is not being, it feels weird, but it's really not. I mean, when we talk about work, we talk about, I love that. I loved working with that team. I loved working on that project. Love at work is also a big thing. So you can bring all of that into all of this. So
yeah, I loved working with you on this project. Like you brought a lot to this project. That offer up ways that you can allow other people to feel loved. And then, as you mentioned earlier, reciprocate. Open yourself up to feeling love. So when someone says, yeah, that was good. That was a really good project. Yeah. Let that be a loving experience for you. Feel that love.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Do you think that's a good place to wrap up?
I do. I think it's fantastic, actually. I do want to just say, just a shout out to Sonja, because it has been such a cool journey that she has been on in her happiness research. And I think it's just turned a really cool phase in this work on love and really pulling out an important aspect of our happiness cue and the mindsets that go into just feeling love. And I just want a big thank you to shout out there for her.
Yeah. And remember, to feel more loved, that I'll take these takeaways from this conversation with Sonja, and you can change your mindset. You can actually do things that will make you feel more loved. That, being loved is important, but you have to feel that. And so today's episode hopefully gave you some great tips and insights on how to do that. Just apply those in your life and you will feel more loved. Yeah.
Not like our listeners are thinking about this, but a way that might make us feel a little bit more loved right now is if they left us a review, if they just gave us a few stars, if they just wrote 2 sentences and just went out and just said, oh yeah, what I love about Behavioral Grooves is fill in the blank. That would be so cool.
Tim and Kurt's great, banter that they have. I love that banter. Maybe I can go out and write that, because I do love the banter with you. There you go. All right. Yeah. Okay. Another way people could share their love is by taking the Groove Effect survey. And not only will we feel loved, but the people who take that survey will be adding their voice to really important research and adding to the overall love in the world.
Yes. So Groovers, we hope that this is a loving experience for you, that you take some love from it, that you feel loved from it, and that you use that this week as you go out and find your groove.